Welcome to the Andersons' Real World. Tonight on the show, I'm joined by former UKIP leader Henry Bolton, former Brexit MEP Belinda DeLucy, she's back on the show for the second time. Also got political commentator Matthew Stadler, former BBC journalist and war correspondent Michael Cole, he's on for the first time, and designer and reality TV star April Banbury. But first, let's go to the news headlines.
It's 7 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The Chancellor is considering cutting inheritance and business tax in an effort to win over Tory MPs with his autumn statement. Jeremy Hunt had said tax cuts this year would be virtually impossible. Well, now, after a recent fall in inflation, he says it all depends on how much the economy's growing.
The best way that we can reduce the tax burden for everyone is to grow the economy. There's no shortcut. If we grow the economy, if we support manufacturing businesses like the one I'm visiting today in Sheffield, that means that we have more money to reduce the tax burden, but also to invest in public services like the NHS. So we will always take a balanced approach, but putting the economy first.
And as part of that visit, the Chancellor has announced £4.5 billion in investment for British manufacturing as he attempts to boost sluggish growth rates. Car makers, aerospace companies and clean energy firms will benefit from the funding, which will cover a 5-year period and become available in 2025 after the next general election. Rishi Sunak's denied tinkering with the Rwanda policy after the former Home Secretary suggested his plan to save the scheme would fail.
Will the Prime Minister rescue the Rwanda plan, Mrs Braverman?
Well, Suella Braverman, who was sacked this week, claims his attempts will not work unless he opts out of the European Convention on Human Rights, and she says the proposed new treaty and legislation are simply a tweaked version of a failed Plan A. Ms Braverman warned Rishi Sunak that his proposal will get bogged down in the courts. The Prime Minister, though, says he'll take on anyone standing in his way. The Labour leader is refusing to back calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, claiming his party remains united, despite this week's rebellion. On a visit to a gas terminal in Aberdeen, Sir Keir Starmer indicated his position proves he's the right person to be the next Prime Minister. However, GB News understands there is concern within the party about a growing rift between Sir Keir and the Scottish Labour leader. Anna Sarwar's MSPs look likely to back an amendment in Holyrood next week, calling for a ceasefire. A man who murdered a schoolteacher in Ireland has been jailed for life. 23-year-old Aisling Murphy was killed while exercising on a canal path in Tullamore in January last year. A 33-year-old Joseph Puska had denied the murder but was convicted by a jury last week. Outside court, police who described the case as a monstrous crime praised the victim's family for courage and dignity shown during the trial. £8.3 billion has been promised to fix what the Prime Minister's described as a scourge of potholes. The funding for road maintenance in England will be available to local authorities over the next decade. It's part of a government plan to spend money saved by the scrapping of the northern leg of HS2. However, the estimated cost of improving local roads in England and Wales is £14 billion. And Everton have had 10 points deducted for breaching the Premier League's financial fair play rules. An independent commission found Everton's losses during the 2021-22 season amounted to £124.5 million. That's almost £20 million more than the allowed limit. The penalty leaves them on 4 points and into the league's relegation zone. The club says the deduction is wholly inappropriate and it will appeal that decision. That is it for the moment here on GB News. Now it is back to Lee Anderson's Real World.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and today I'm joined by former UKIP leader, that is Henry Bolton. Nice to meet you, Henry. Matthew Stadler, who's a political commentator. He's our left in the corner. He's wearing a Tory tie today though, aren't you, Matthew? I think you've been forced to wear that.
This is actually, Lee, the tie that I got married in because my wife is a Conservative and she hoodwinked me into getting a Tory blue tie for the most important day of my life.
Well, there you go, you see. There
you go. Today?
Look, guys, we're going to get straight to it. All this talk of ties is making me feel dizzy.
You started it, Lee.
I didn't start it. The Rwanda ruling this week, Henry. a bit of a shocker for me. I felt sick to the pit of my stomach. I wanted to get these flights off, get these illegal migrants out of our country and to a third safe country. Is it going to work eventually?
I think the government can get it across the line. Yeah. I mean, I think, the Supreme Court has laid out the requirements that need to be met in order for it to be, in their view, legal under the present legal framework. Obviously, the Prime Minister has now come up with the idea of coming up with some extraordinary legislation to help get it across the line. It can work. The problems I have with it are twofold, Lee. One is that all the eggs are in one basket. It seems to me that the government is expecting the Rwanda plan to be the solution to the small boats. I don't believe it is. It may be part of the solution, and that's why I support it. But it is not the solution. There's sort of migration, immigration, asylum, all of the drivers of that, all of the criminal organisations who are involved in this, and all of the things that pull them to the UK. It's a highly complex thing. And to really put all your eggs in that one plan, it's not going to have a big impact at all. The other thing that I've got an issue with is, why is it that there are not other things going on at the same time?
It's not just all of the eggs in one basket. We have been working on other stuff. Crossings are down by about 30% from last year. We've got the returns agreement with Albania. They've stopped coming pretty much altogether. So it's not just about having all the eggs in one basket. It's about dealing with other countries as well. Let me just bring Matthew in. Matthew.
Well, let me start by saying that no one wants to see these crossings because they are very, very dangerous and they endanger the lives of people. Let me say a second thing. The gangs of people who bring these people across or send them across are very, very bad people. And the British government, and you're the deputy chair of the governing party, the British government needs to be doing a hell of a lot more, in my view, to get a grip of these gangs. Do I think that the Rwanda policy is a good policy? No, I don't, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because, and the Supreme Court agreed with this, Rwanda is not a safe country. The president of Rwanda, Kagame, has been in power since 2000. It is, as I understand it, an authoritarian regime. It might be nice to go and see the gorillas in Rwanda for a holiday. It's a beautiful country. I've got nothing against the people of Rwanda, but it is not a safe country if you are an asylum seeker. And let me say something else, and this is really important. You have a position, Lee, of enormous significance and responsibility. And yesterday, and you'll tell me if I'm misquoting you, you said that the government should break the law and get these flights in the air despite the ruling of the Supreme Court. That means that you don't believe in the rule of law.
Hold on a minute, Matthew. Yes, I am the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, and over the past 2 years, we've passed 2 acts of Parliament to try and stop the illegal migration. That's the Borders Bill and the Illegal Migration Bill. Look, the Supreme Court disagreed with it. I'll tell you what, go outside in the real world, come up to Ashfield, speak to real people, and 90% will get behind me. It's an absolute travesty of justice, this is, in my opinion.
But
like
Lee,
I say,
people might support you, Lee, and they have every right to support your view, okay? Yeah. You have a right to express your view.
Of course.
However, let's be clear about the view that you are expressing and that you're claiming support for. You want a decision made in a British court, the highest court in our land, the Supreme Court, to be broken by the government. I'm not saying that Parliament can't change the law. Of course, Parliament can change the law, and Rishi Sunak is going to try to do that. What he's going to try to do is totally absurd. He's going to try and persuade Parliament to pretend that Rwanda is a safe country when it isn't.
I just want to say, because there were people, and a good friend of mine comes on this show on a regular basis, Simon Danchuk. He's married to a Rwandan lady. He spends half his time in Rwanda. I think he's got business there, he's got a house there. It's the safest country in Africa. He has a good life there. And I think, Matthew, to be quite honest, the good people of Rwanda will be quite offended with your comments there. Henry?
I agree, it is safe, but the problem is that the Supreme Court has ruled as it has. And I would like to go back. Rwanda has become the focus of all of this. We should be actually focusing not on Rwanda as such, but on the comprehensive management of our borders and the proper management of our immigration. And the legislation that government has passed is flawed because it has been designed to deal with specific issues that have arisen rather than facilitate that effective management of our borders and immigration. And I have helped numerous countries to deal with this at cabinet level. Ironically, I was paid by the UK government, which will not listen to me at the moment. The first thing you've got to do is look at what you want to achieve overall with your borders. There are massive problems, not only with immigration, but also all the cocaine and heroin that comes across our borders. And the legal facilitation needs to be put in place. Government/Parliament needs to decide what it wants to achieve on our borders, and then comprehensively, and then you've got to have a borders bill. What we did was conflate immigration with borders, mistake number one, and draft legislation accordingly. That is why it's now been found wanting and governments in a difficult position.
We had a broken asylum system in this country.
Indeed.
We did. And we have got people, it's a whole industry now of traffickers, of whoever who's making millions and millions of pounds of this. But I want to go back to Matthew now. Matthew, I've been to Calais, been to France, I've been to the camps, and believe me, I've said it on this show many times, that the vast majority of young men I spoke to were not genuine asylum seekers. They were not displaced people. They were people coming for economic reasons. And the words they kept saying to me as they pointed to the cliffs of Dover was El Dorado. El Dorado. They were coming for that, and who can blame them?
It's good that you, as an elected politician, have been on the ground in northern France and spoken to people. I think, at least for 1 year, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of people coming over on the boats eventually did get at least a temporary order saying that they were genuine asylum seekers or that they could continue along the process. So a lot of the people who are coming, and by the way, I've said already, we've got to try to stop the boats because they're very dangerous. A lot of the people who are coming are genuine asylum seekers. Do I want illegal immigration in this country? No, I don't. Do I think that the government has got a grip of it? No, I don't. One final thing, because this is important, this issue of whether Rwanda is a safe country. Do you think that Saudi Arabia is a safe country? If you or I went as tourists to Saudi Arabia, we'd probably feel safe because there's a law and order in that country. But what underpins that law and order? An authoritarian, non-democratic regime that has horrendous punishments.
Well, I'm not aware, Henry, of any illegal migrants being sent to Saudi Arabia. But do you agree with, Matthew says that most of these people are given asylum status. He's right about 60 or 70%.
He's right, but
are they genuine asylum?
No, they are not. What we've got there is a problem with the process of granting them that status. It is flawed. It is under-resourced. It is the people carrying out the assessments don't have the relevant training or the knowledge of the places that these people have come from. They are entirely ill-equipped to make those decisions, and they are under pressure to make those decisions as quickly as possible now. The idea that just because 60-odd% are granted asylum, even if it's a temporary status, is not reliable because the process is itself unreliable.
We've already seen the immigration lawyers. There was a clip on a few months back, cheating the system.
Indeed, and they do. And you're absolutely right. I've also dealt with these people on the ground, the criminals. I've been out there kicking in doors and arresting criminals along with law enforcement agencies elsewhere. I've been pulling these people out of cellars and everything else. There are people who are exploited, human trafficked, but most of them are absolutely economic migrants. They may have left somewhere because the conditions there aren't very pleasant, but that is a very different thing to fleeing for your life or when you get to Italy deciding that you're going to head towards the UK.
Matthew, I got a little bit feisty there in the middle, but it was a great debate. I'd love to have you both back on at some stage because that was really, really good. But look, coming up next, we've got former BBC TV presenter and current royal correspondent, Michael Cole. Do not go away.
We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's on your teeth. It's on your teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My next guest is former BBC TV presenter and current royal correspondent Michael Cole. Welcome to the show, Michael, for the first time. Obviously, we're going to talk about the royal family. It's like a soap opera. It's, in fact, I think some of the characters in soaps are more believable these days. So it grips the nation. People are, you know, the Harry and Meghan thing. It's what's going off, mate?
You know, you're quite right. I was the BBC royal correspondent, the court correspondent, able to park my BBC Rover 216 in the car park, go through the Privy Purse entrance. I went around the world with Her Majesty the Queen, our late Queen, and other members of the royal family. But Lee, it didn't start for me right there. It started for me on the 16th of February 1962, when my father put me on the train at St Pancras to go to Mansfield in Nottingham.
That's near me.
Right next to your constituency. Yeah. And I started at the age of 18 on the local paper, the Mansfield Chronicle Advertiser.
Yes.
I went into the office. They said, you're the new boy. Go up to the parish church. Your first job is to collect the names of the mourners at the funeral of a bigwig, a local bigwig.
A bigwig.
So I did that, and every Monday morning I had to ring the 9 collieries around Mansfield to find out how much coal each one had cut. So that's how I began as a reporter.
That's interesting, because you'd have been ringing collieries that I worked at later, and you'd have been ringing up stately homes that I've probably visited all of them at some stage in my life. So that's astounding. But let's go back to the royals, the soap opera that is. It is. We've had the Netflix series, The Crown, which I think that went viral all over the planet. People are are nosy. People want to. They actually believe some of this stuff, because I know it's not. A lot of it's fiction in the Crown, and I know the royals watch it as well. Have you watched it?
Of course, and also Prince Harry has watched every single second of it. He's not a great one with books. I'm not quite sure whether he's ever read one. Perhaps he read his own biography.
It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Well, but he certainly has watched that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not down on the Crown at all. The first two series, which portrayed the young Queen Elizabeth II, Claire Foy played her as wise, winning, very beautiful. I mean, at Buckingham Palace, they were purring with satisfaction, hugging themselves with glee, because it presented such a brilliant advertisement for monarchy. The later storylines, problematical, difficulties, scandals, they didn't go down too well. And of course, all the critics came out and gave them a good kicking, including two former prime ministers, Major and Blair. And as a result of that pushing and bullying, they now put up a caption at the beginning of each episode saying that it is dramatised fiction.
It is dramatised, but the royals brought up and live on country estates, but the family having the same sort of problems as people on council estates. Are they a dysfunctional family?
Of course, you can say, is it Coronation Street or is it Coronation? You know, I mean, which is it? And some of the behaviour would have disgraced even EastEnders. I mean, things that have gone on that we know about. Yeah. They are resolutely human beings. But, you know, Her Majesty the Queen used to say, I have to be seen to be believed. And I remember one of her press secretaries, the late Michael Shea, saying to me, 50% of the Queen's job is being seen. Yeah. That is why she wore those bright colours, those pastel colours, not because she particularly liked them, but because she knew she had to stand out in a crowd. And of course, that is very much part of the job. Parliament is sovereign. The sovereign isn't sovereign. The king reigns, but he does not rule. That's your job. Yeah. You've got the power. But the monarch does exert influence, and he has the great privilege that you and I don't have. He has a sit-down conversation every Tuesday evening with the Prime Minister.
Does any of the royals actually vote?
No, they're not allowed to vote. No, nor peers of the realm, of course.
See, I didn't know that.
No, they have no vote. But, I mean, if you are the king, you can exert your influence. It was said that the Queen didn't really have to disapprove. All she had to do was raise one eyebrow and say to the Prime Minister, do you think that's entirely wise, Prime Minister? Okay. And they went away to think, is it entirely wise? And that was quite useful in our unwritten constitution, to have somebody who was actually second-guessing what the Prime Minister was doing.
What's your most memorable moment of the Queen? There must have been many.
Of course there were, but you know something which I really admired her. I really did admire her. Yeah. We were in Barbados, and the Commonwealth wasn't just a nice place to go in wintertime, but she always did jobs, and she went, and it was the opening of a big cement works. Okay. And there was a young man there who was going to tell her how cement was made, and he had his best suit on and his tie, and he stood there with all his graphics and his PowerPoint, and the Queen stood there on her little size 4 feet, and she listened, and he went on for 45 minutes telling her how to make cement. Yeah. And I thought, my goodness, you know, eventually he stopped, and I thought, oh, great, we'll have a drink before lunchtime. And then he turned to her and said the deathless words, and of course, then there is the other way of making cement. And of course, she didn't flinch. She knew that if she expressed any displeasure or irritation or impatience, he would remember that forever. She had wonderful manners in the sense that she put people like you and me completely at ease, and she found things to say about them. And she was funny.
But let's talk about the Queen, about memorable moments, but surely Prince Philip, there's some memorable moments, because he could put his foot in it sometimes, couldn't he?
Well, you know, I wasn't a huge fan, let me just tell you that. I interviewed him in the days when royal interviews were rare. I was invited to interview him. It was about business, okay? And he volunteered for this interview about business because he was the patron of the Small Business Association. And during the interview, I said to him, because British industry was in a bad way at the time, wouldn't it be a good idea if one of your sons, instead of, or as well as going into the services, went and worked for a big British company?
Good idea.
Yeah, good idea. Anyway, he passed it off and said, no, that wouldn't be practical. But when the camera was switched off, when these guys switched off, he said to me, what an absolutely bloody stupid idea. Do you realise that if one of my sons worked for Ford, don't you think that Vauxhall would complain? And he tore a strip off me for asking that question. And I thought it was a perfectly sensible question. And since then, we've seen his sons taking much more interest in business and commerce. And I thought to myself, well, why did he need a sledgehammer to crack a very small nut like me? Yeah. So he could be abrasive, he could be rude.
He couldn't have really got a job in the diplomatic corps.
Well, I think sometimes he liked to go out of the way to rough people up. People tell me he was very charming and very nice and so on, but only when he wanted to. I think it's a true sign of good manners when you're pleasant to the people who are below you.
Yes, I agree with that, yeah.
When you're pleasant to them. Yeah. And he didn't do that. I mean, other people were saying, well, that's just Philip, that's just Philip. Yeah. But I think when you're the monarch's husband, I think you have to be super sensitive.
Yeah. Well, Michael, thanks. Absolutely brilliant, fascinating
Great pleasure.
chat. Look,
Great
do not
pleasure.
go away. Coming up next, we've got former Brexit MEP Belinda DeLucy and political commentator Matthew Stadlen.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Joining me now is the former Brexit MEP, Belinda Delusi, Brexit Party.
Yeah.
And back is Matthew Stadland, political commentator. Look, this week we had a demonstration on Whitehall around Parliament Square, just before the vote for the ceasefire. The SNP's put an amendment into the King's speech. Now, I tried to get out onto Parliament Square. There was literally thousands of people there. It was quite scary. Lots of chanting again, some of the chanting not so nice. But what struck me was Labour MPs going outside to join the demonstration. Belinda, has Sir Keir lost control of his MPs on this matter?
I think Keir has lulled the country into a false sense of security about his party. I think the captain may have changed, but the crew on the ship smacks very much still of the Corbyn era. That hasn't changed as much as perhaps people thought it might have changed. The behaviour of certain Labour MPs, the one, for example, who's been recently suspended for chanting from the river to the sea at a demonstration. Those 56 who voted this week for a ceasefire, essentially voting for Israel to put down their arms while Hamas regroups, rearms and plans more attacks. That's essentially what would happen if one was called. I think it's woken people up a bit to actually the Labour Party not being as squeaky clean as Keir Starmer wants to portray it as, and to attend these demonstrations and protests, knowing full well they're infiltrated by the worst of the worst anti-Semites, Islamists, radical Islamists. They know they're there, and to share a platform with them, I think is quite frightening. I think it's very frightening, actually.
Matthew, I wouldn't go on these marches because I wouldn't want to march side by side with certain people who are either being explicitly anti-Semitic or might hide their anti-Semitism. That doesn't mean that everyone on those marches is a bad person, and I hope that the vast majority are not anti-Semitic, and indeed a very close Jewish friend of mine has been on 2 of those marches. As to Keir Starmer's grip on his party, I think the message from this week is that he is a strong leader. I don't agree with everything he says by any means, but I think although it's been a tricky time, it could have been a lot more damaging to him. And in fact, there's an argument to suggest he's going to come out stronger than he was beforehand because he's held to his line and he is prepared to sack people, I think.
So, Belinda, Matthew says he's a strong leader, but let's go back to his crew.
Well, isn't it interesting? The more statesman-like Keir seems to act like, the stronger the leader he is, the more his party revolts. It's almost like his party is not in step with that statesman-like character he wants to portray. And remember, he hasn't yet erased his past support for Jeremy Corbyn. It was only in 2019 he said, he thought Jeremy would make a great PM. And when confronted with the question of, do you think Corbyn's a danger to Jewish people? He said, no, I don't accept it. And in 2020 as well, he said Jeremy Corbyn was being vilified. So just up until a few years ago, he was seen to be firmly behind Corbyn until it didn't suit his party.
Belinda says that some of the Labour Party are revolting. I mean, I tend to agree. Do you think that's right?
On the Corbyn thing, I mean, a lot of us would have seen his interview with Piers Morgan earlier in the week. And I have to say, perhaps I wasn't surprised, but I was shocked that he seemed unable, in that exchange, when asked about 15 times, whether he would call Hamas a terror organisation. He seemed unable to do so. He's been very clear. He's come out against the October the 7th attacks, but I think it's appalling that he didn't answer that question straightforwardly when he was asked it the first time. Keir Starmer, yes, he did try to get Jeremy Corbyn elected. There are plenty of decent people in the Labour Party, and indeed millions of voters who stuck by Labour. I didn't stick by Labour when Corbyn was leader, but millions of decent people did. And there's a very strong argument that it was the right thing to do, because otherwise you could say that the Labour Party would have fallen apart completely. I think Starmer has been very, very clear in distancing himself from the toxicity of Corbynism. And indeed, Corbyn is not going to be allowed to run as a Labour MP at the next election.
He wasn't man enough to distance himself a few years back when he was going to be Prime Minister.
Has he apologised? I think it would have helped if he'd come out and said, you know, I apologise for my devotion and support for this man that caused so many of our Jewish community to feel utterly rejected and hurt and intimidated. Because actually, these protests, what we're seeing now, the demonstrations, the protests, the sitting in our stations, they're less of a protest now. They're more of an act of intimidation and control.
Can I be clear, by the way? First of all, I don't think Starmer was devoted to Corbyn. Secondly, although I believe very strongly in freedom of speech and I believe in the right to peacefully protest, wherever there is anti-Semitism on any of these marches, and I say this as a Jewish person myself, it has to be clamped down on by the police. It's right that we're focusing on Labour, because this isn't just a story about the Tories, but let's also remember that the Home Secretary was sacked this week and that her resignation letter was one of the most vicious letters of, well, it wasn't a resignation, she was sacked, but her letter that she sent to Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, your boss, was one of the most vicious letters I can remember. And that was from a former Home Secretary. So that's an astonishing place for the Conservative Party to be in, months out from a general election. We know that unity is crucial if you want to win an election.
Let's talk about unity, because since I've been in Parliament, I've been an MP for nearly 4 years now, and there's been 2 occasions, or 3 occasions, should I say, where I've been actually scared or a little bit concerned for my own safety with the demonstrations outside. And 2 of those have been the pro-Palestine rallies. One was this week, one was a few weeks back. The other one was the BLM protest we had a couple of years back. That was very, very scary indeed. But on both occasions, Belinda, there were Labour MPs outside with them.
I know, I do think that's what I feel like's happening this week. The spotlight's suddenly on the ingredients that make up the Labour Party still, not just Keir Starmer. And I think it paints quite a frightening picture to not come out and say these protests are full of hate, because they're not even having a placard about the hostages or about against Hamas. You know, you can only have Palestinian flags on these protests. There's nothing about peace about these protests. And yes, of course, there are so many people on the protests that are there peacefully. I get that. They know they walk with hateful, horrid people. I was on Saturday, I was at the Cenotaph. There were the football lads out, and I left straight away. Not because the football lads were doing anything wrong, but I thought the energy changed, and I didn't want to share my platform with people who didn't represent my views. People on the palace, these Labour MPs are quite happy to walk with people who hate Jewish people, or it seems like that.
They did do something wrong with some of these football lads. They were saying, we want our country back, which is obviously a highly inflammatory thing to say. Can I just say, of course, we want our country back from whom? But from whom, Lee? From whom? Who do you want it back from?
I want people in this country to respect our history, our traditions, our
What about our law? What about our laws? Yesterday you said you said the government should break. Yes, but the court decides whether you've broken the laws.
We made 2 acts of Parliament, and the Supreme Court decided they wanted to go against that.
And you don't want to obey that. You don't want to obey the law of the land. If you don't obey the law of the land as the deputy chair of your party, what message does that send out?
We should adhere by the law that we make in Parliament.
The Supreme Court decides on what is and isn't breaking the law. You make the law. The courts decide whether the laws are being broken or not.
Sometimes in this world, and the people on the left, Belinda, will say, well, the suffragettes broke the law, they jumped in front of horses, they demonstrated. Sometimes they'll come out with all this sort of stuff. You know, I believe in the law of the land. I also believe in protecting this country, and that should always come first.
What, so you believe that we should break the law? You're sticking by that. The Supreme Court, which is a domestic court...
I double down on my statement.
You are double down on it.
I'm not going to back down to no leftists,
So when some of your constituents break the law, you say, that's fine, don't arrest them because they've broken the law. Don't arrest them.
I've not said that. That's ridiculous.
Why is it? You're a senior politician suggesting that the law should be broken.
This is about protecting our borders. When you go to bed at night time, Matthew, you've got a kid. I bet the last thing you do before you go to bed is lock your door, put your alarm on and make sure that nobody can enter your property.
When I go to
and
bed
it should
at
be
night,
the same
I do
with
that.
our borders.
When I go to bed at night, I do that, and I also
Right.
believe we have a police
We're
force
never
to
gonna agree on
protect
this, are
us.
we?
No, we have
We're
to
never
obey
gonna-
the laws in that land. Otherwise,
Right,
we're
coming up
nothing.
next-
Otherwise, we're nothing.
Coming up next, guys, is the yes or no quiz that we're going to calm down. Security are going to be in a couple of minutes to try and separate us, but yes, no quiz. Let's go to it. Right, guys, time for the yes or no quiz. This is dead simple. I think you've done it before, Belinda, haven't you? Simple, Matthew. It's yes or no. There's no cowardly answers where you can scurry away and try and explain yourself. There's no yes but, yes but, no but. It's a yes or no. And then at the end, we'll go back to one of your answers and then you can just try and qualify that. So we'll start with you, Belinda. Should protests be banned near war memorials?
No, but on Remembrance Days, yes.
Wrong answer. Matthew?
Sorry.
No.
Okay. Number 2, Matthew. Do you agree with sending illegal migrants is the key word, to Rwanda?
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Belinda, will voting reform help Labour win the next election?
No.
No. Number 4, Matthew. Should politicians be allowed to host TV shows?
No.
Belinda?
Yes.
Number 5, Belinda, will Nigel Farage win the Celebrity Jungle contest?
100% yes.
Yes.
Well, that's, yeah, so, sorry about that. You've done this before. It's just a yes or it's
I'm
just a yes
sorry,
or a no.
I was just wondering.
I want to come back to you on the reform because
Yeah.
Richard Tice has been quite explicit in his language that voting reform will destroy the Tories at the next election.
Well, I would say the only thing destroying the Tories at the next election are the
You sound like a
Tories themselves.
politician.
No, I'm sorry, but the Conservatives are handing Labour the keys. It's nothing to do with reform whatsoever. They have written their own destiny in the sand by completely rejecting and almost insulting the voters of
Well, we've seen
2019.
in the last 2 by-elections, the reform vote stopped us winning. So, but anyway, Matthew, do you want to come back on
Your
one of the
policies
answers?
stop you winning,
We're
not
going
us.
to stop interrupting Matthew.
My understanding of voting reform is that it was going to help the Tories, but I do agree that Richard Tice's party is a massive electoral threat to you guys, because if they shave off some of your vote in key marginals, that is going to fall straight into the hands of the Labour Party.
That's Conservatives' policy failing to win the argument with the people. That's not reform. Reform, we're offering just another choice. The Conservatives need to take responsibility for utterly and completely destroying trust and letting people down.
Lee,
That's what's
just
letting Labour
to come back
in.
on one other thing to explain my answer on whether politicians should be able to host their own shows, and I stand by the answer, but I also
stop his fee, please.
I absolutely would apply this to Labour politicians as well. And if you were not allowed to have your own show on GB News, then David Lammy shouldn't be allowed to have his own show on LBC. The reason I say this is because it's a blurring of the lines, in my view, between journalism and politics, between journalism and our elected representatives. However, it's not my decision. And while you or David Lammy or anyone else is, or Richard Tice, given this opportunity, I will come on and challenge you and try to hold you to account.
Don't you think you're being a bit of an hypocrite by coming on if you don't agree I should have a show?
I've just explained why. I've just explained because I will
Is
come
it
and
Belinda?
challenge you.
I think we should pay
No one likes a
MPs.
hypocrite.
I think we should pay MPs much more money so they don't need second jobs.
say
Number
that.
one, I
Well,
do.
you were
I
against
do.
second jobs,
No, I wasn't.
weren't you?
MEPs,
You were.
No,
MEPs
my
get paid so
comments,
much more.
I was misquoted.
What did you say?
I said something like, we're paid handsomely for our jobs. If you want more money, get another job.
As in, get a second job?
Yeah,
or
second job, extra job. Which before, by the way, Matthew, before I did this, I had 3 jobs on minimum wage. And nobody complained at me then.
That's true.
Well,
That's
look,
fair
do
enough.
not go away, because coming up next, it's Last Orders, and we've got Married at First Sight star April Banbury. Do not go away.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified on playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. Today I'm joined by April Banbury, fashion designer and former reality TV star on Married at First Sight, is that right?
Yeah, Married at First Sight.
Sorry, April, but I've not watched the programme, but why would you marry a bloke you've never met?
I mean, why not? I'm one of those.
not?
Why not? I mean, it's probably going to be hopeless in life anyway, marrying someone. So I thought I may as well marry a stranger. It might be the only chance I've got.
Is that why you applied for the TV show?
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm really bad at dating.
Yeah.
I don't do it, and I thought, you know what? What's more fun than putting yourself, taking yourself outside of your comfort zone and doing something crazy that you can,
Okay, was it fun?
Do you know what? It was an experience. There were so many fun elements to it. Like, I really loved the filming side of things, the producers, directors, the welfare, and made a great best friend. So, yeah, those aspects were fun.
And what did your friends and family think while she was doing that?
My dad was, like, weirdly chill. He was like, okay, fine. I don't think he really knew what I was doing. Like, I don't think it really hit him. My friends thought it was crazy. They were like, literally, are you okay? But they kind of got it because they know how bad I am at dating. Like, I'm just so bad. I was like, this is probably my only chance.
Okay, so fast forward 20 odd years, April. You've got a daughter of your own, and she comes home, she says, Mom, she's 18, 20, whatever she is. Mom, I've applied for this reality TV show. I'm going to get married to a complete stranger. What would you say to her?
I mean, I'd probably be like my dad. I'd be like, chill, like, you know what? It's fine.
Yeah.
Do your thing, and then freak out silently. Just because, that's a big deal, isn't it?
Now, you came in here today and you was in a bit of pain.
Yes.
Notice. I know you're on your medication.
Mhm.
You've got a back injury.
Yes.
Tell me about that, April.
Yeah, so, I mean, about 4 months ago now, I prolapsed a disc in my spine, the lumbar region. So I literally was unable to walk.
So you was lifting something heavy?
I was lifting something heavy in the wrong way, and before I knew it, I wasn't able to walk anymore. So my life, as I knew it, was completely taken away from me. Like, I'd go to events, red carpet events, photo shoots. I was here, there, and everywhere, like learning to fly, playing, just doing everything. And then all of a sudden had this injury and just went in a downward spiral and couldn't move. And I'm in recovery now. I owe that thanks to my osteopath, Neville Mayer. He's literally saved my life.
So there's a physical pain, because I think we've all had a bad back at some stage in our life, but it makes you miserable as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's the physical pain and the mental pain. It's like, with a spinal injury like this, it's not just like lower back pain, it goes down into your legs. Like I've got problems with my discs in the top, so my arms, my legs, my head, everything. And then there's a mental aspect. Being inside my house for 3 months, like I knew I was loved by my family and friends, but I didn't really realise how much until this happened. Like everyone has been incredible. Like looking after me, just going, you know, doing my washing, dressing me, washing me. Yeah.
Okay, there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
There is. You know what? I'm such a positive person. I feel like things in life happen. It's how you deal with it that counts. You know, I can sit there, be miserable and dwell in it, or I can, you know, plan positive things, keep a positive mindset, know that I am going to recover, and be that advocate for other people who are going through this and who have been through it. You know, to be like, come on, we can do this. I can do this. It's going to be okay.
So you're also a fashion designer.
I am, yes.
Told. What do you design?
I design beauty pageant dresses and wedding dresses.
And how's that industry going at the moment?
I mean, great. Obviously,
what about prom dresses? Do you
I
them?
don't do prom dresses. No, I do all glitz and glam, so they probably wouldn't, you know,
Is
go
this
to a prom
like
like that.
high-end stuff for stars and celebrities?
Yeah, so I made my own wedding dress on Married at First Sight. And then I've just made, recently, about to air actually tonight, the Miss Universe Great Britain national costume for the Miss Universe World Finals.
Will that be on TV?
It will be on TV this evening, God,
that's brilliant. I bet you're so proud of that, aren't you?
I am, I can't wait to see it,
So the future, what does it hold for you?
I mean, the future holds recovery.
Recovery, getting better.
Doing cartwheels in heels, hopefully in about a year's time. I want to continue my design work, like, you know, that's my passion. I want to get my pilot's license, you know, and I just want to,
When you get married on this programme, is it a real marriage?
It's a fake marriage.
Is it a fake marriage? So you can't go for half his money now or
No.
anything like that? Do you have a fake divorce as well?
No, you don't. You just never see each other again.
And how's that panned out?
Yeah, no, it's fine. You know what? I got a best friend from it, so
Would you do it again?
Do you know what? I'd never say never, because obviously I didn't succeed and I'm still single. I'd definitely give it another shot, I guess.
Oh, April, I mean, that's, I'm sorry to hear about your injury. I hope you get better.
Thank you.
I know it's frustrating. It can be tormenting when you've got an injury. I've had some injuries before in a previous life, and it does get you down. It makes you miserable. But we've got you here for a reason. That's On the Pull. We have a different celeb every week pulling a pint.
I love this.
You've got your glass. I've been told that you've worked behind a bar before, haven't you?
I have.
So you've got 30 seconds to pull a pint, and then I'm going to mark you out of 10.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and then you'll hopefully get you on the leaders board.
Oh my God, there's a leaders board?
There is a leaders board.
Oh, no. Okay, I'm competitive.
I think it's Tommy Skinner's at the top at the moment.
I'm going to rake.
Yeah, go for it.
Do I start now?
Yeah, go for it. Actually, yeah, you've got the tilt right, haven't you?
I have. Okay.
Most people just put the pint pot just straight, but obviously you've done this before.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away my age. Not very long. I wasn't very good at it.
Was you not?
No, but I feel like...
Look at that. A little bit more. You can just plonk that on the bar now, April.
I feel like I've nailed that person.
Well, I'm looking at the camera crew now, and they're all nodding. They're all nodding their heads and putting thumbs up. That.
If I got served that, I'd be like, that's a bloody good pint.
I would say that's probably the best we've had now. I mean, Tommy Skinner poured a good one. He talked a good game as well, didn't he? I think Tommy did. But I want to give you... I think we've got a 10.5 somewhere. But I want to give you 10.5 for that.
Yes! Oh my God, so I'm at the top of the leaderboard?
Yeah, top of the leaderboard.
Yes.
I think you're just above Tommy and Fatima Whitbread, and there's a few other...
I'll take that.
Jim Davidson, his was awful, Jim Davidson. It was terrible. It was like... and Mike Pye was like shaving foam.
Oh my God.
But yeah, 10.5 for that, so I think you're going to go to the top. But look, it's been wonderful having you on the show. Just one thing. I mean, obviously you're going to be a bit of a role model, April, to young girls.
Yeah.
Of a certain age. They're going to be looking at these programmes that you've been in, look how glamorous you are and stuff like that. If they're thinking of going into reality TV, what sort of advice would you give them?
My advice would be yourself, because when you're your true, authentic self, you know, you're just going to have fun with it and you're going to enjoy some intense moments and deal with them the best you can. You know, the best thing you can do in life is be yourself and not pretend to be someone you're not.
So it took you about, I don't know, 10 seconds to pull that pint. You think you can drink it in 10 seconds?
Go on then.
Let's have a go. Come on.
No, are you joking? I can't drink that. I can drink it in 5.
Just think about your meds. But go on, go for it. We'll start the clock again.
Oh my God, I'm gonna fall off this crate.
This is irresponsible drinking, by the way. Oh my word. Oh, that'll do, won't it? I think that'll do. That's a brilliant effort.
Don't tell my osteopath.
April, thanks for coming on, darling. Been an absolute
Thanks for
pleasure.
having me.
Lovely, thank you. Look, massive thanks once again for watching Lee Anderson's Real World. Back at the same time, 7 p.m. next Friday on GB News. Look, coming up next, we've got Mark Dolan with his brand new show. It's a must-watch. It's Friday Night Live. Good night, good safe, have a good one.
Evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The rain is returning tonight, but it should clear tomorrow, so many places will brighten up through the day, and it will be quite a bit milder as well. That's because this area of low pressure is moving in. These weather fronts are bringing the rain, but they're also bringing the winds up from the southwest, hence why it will be turning milder. Still dry and a bit cold this evening across northern Scotland. A little bit of frost likely here, but it will turn milder as the rain spreads northwards. Heavy rain for Northern Ireland, Wales and southwest England, where we do have Met Office yellow warnings in place. Temperatures dipping down to single figures, particularly early on in the night, but by morning time these temperatures will be on the rise because it will be a wet start for most. That rain particularly heavy over South Wales, southwest England, a lot of spray and surface water on the roads here, but it should be clearing away to the east. It may linger in Kent well into the afternoon. There'll be showers keeping going in western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but for a good chunk of the country, brightens up a bit tomorrow. We should see some sunny spells. It will be breezy, but it will also be quite mild with temperatures getting up to 14, 15, possibly even 16 Celsius. Windy again on Sunday, particularly across the south. If anything, windier here during the day. There'll be a lot of clouds on Sunday, and we'll see showery bands of rain moving across. It won't rain all day. There'll be some drier and brighter spells, but for much of the day it will be cloudy. Not too many showers getting to eastern Scotland. Mostly dry here. Again, pretty mild for the time of year, but feeling colder with the wind.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if